The AI boom has been causing a surge in the semiconductor industry for the past 10 years. And there are 5 semiconductor ETFs with an annual average growth of more than 20% that can attest to that. And if that doesn't make it sweet enough, they also pay dividends. If you don't know what an ETF is, in a sentence, it's possibly one of the safest high-yielding investments that you can make since they are company diversified and industry targeted. You can check more about it in the video linked in the description below, where I explain you what an ETF is, how they work, and how you can buy one. So here are the 5 ETFs. For the top 4 ETFs, the range of return is 24 to more than 25% on average annually, which is a multiplier of around 9 for a time period of 10 years, meaning that your principal is multiplied by that number to arrive at the value of your investment after 10 years. So a multiplier of 9, for example, means that if you invested $50,000 in the ETF, it would become $450,000 after 10 years. However, these ETFs differ in dividend yields and expense ratios, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Hi guys, I'm Dave. I've been working in fintech startups as an engineer in New York for the past 2 years now, which serves me as my foundation for tech, finance, and making money outside of the 9 to 5, which is what I talk about in this channel. While I did say that it's the AI boom that is causing the surge in the semiconductor industry, it is actually true both ways. It's also the advancements in the semiconductor technology that enables a much more powerful AI, and it's only now that we have software and hardware that are both ripe to see this reignition of innovation and the economy to be growing rather than stagnating. While these ETFs invest in similar companies like AMD, Intel, and Nvidia, they have different expense ratios and dividend yields. Starting with SPDR's S&P Semiconductor ETF that had the highest annual return on average of 25.2%, it has an expense ratio of 0.35%, which means that every year, 0.35% of the value of your investment will be used as a payment for the company that manages the fund. If you invest $50K with 0.35% expense ratio and your investment grew by 25% after 1 year to 62.5K, you will pay about $219 for the first year, and you will keep paying a fee once a year depending on the value of your investment. That expense ratio in relative terms is definitely good. The annual dividend yield for the XSD is 0.39%, which means that you will be paid 0.39% as a dividend out of the total value of your investment. Using the same example from before, with a $50K investment and 25% growth to $62.5K after the first year, you'll be paid about $244, which is 0.39% of your investment's value after a year. For XSD, those dividends are qualified dividends, which means that they will be subject to long-term capital gains tax rather than ordinary income tax, which is much worse. So as I said before, the expense ratio and dividend yield is different for different ETFs. Here's a summary of all the information for these ETFs, including their expense ratio and annual dividend yield, and note that the dividends for all of these 5 ETFs are qualified dividends. The annual dividend yield will cover the annual fee except only for Invesco's Dynamic Semiconductors ETF that has an expense ratio of 0.56% and an annual dividend yield of 0.5%. The reason some ETFs have a higher expense ratio is because some are less passive and have more adjustments to their portfolios. If you ever want to research virtually any ETF, learn about its expense ratio, dividend yield, and other metrics, you can do that in etfdb.com. For example, here I'm viewing QQQ. In the profile page, you can check out general information such as the issuer, sectors that the ETF is invested in, trading data, and so on. To check the dividend yield, go to dividend and valuation, and you can see that and also how it compares to the average dividend yield of similar ETFs. For fees, you can go to the expense ratio and fees tab, and it will show you what will be the fee you'll have to pay annually. Here, you'll also see whether the dividends are qualified or not. The dividend payments are also called distributions. Past performance is not an indicator of future results, but it goes both ways. So these ETFs might perform worse, but they also might perform better than what they have performed so far. And this perfectly segues into the bullish and bearish cases. In the bearish case, despite of projections and current evidence of how AI is going to spur innovation and economic growth, those fall short because of regulations and fear that the advancement with AI might have unprecedented ramifications, forcing us to slow down. In the bullish case, we're going through something that we're not even grasping, something that's equivalent to the invention of the iPhone or even the steam engine or the computer in terms of its effects to the economy long term. Disruptive innovation is not only a matter for the last 50 years. The history is full of such examples, and there were always concerns that ultimately did not hold for too long. Can you imagine that in the late 19th century and the early 20th century, with the invention of the automobile, there were laws like the Red Flag Act that required to have a person walk in front of the automobile and therefore limiting its speed to 3 to 5 miles per hour so that bystanders and carriages will be warned. We've also been saying that robots will replace humans for nearly every decade in the 20th century. But unfortunately, we all still need to work. So assuming that these concerns will also ultimately weather on the vine, where can we go with a much more powerful AI? For starters, large companies spend billions of dollars annually on workforce, HR, administrators, recruiters, and they often have to perform menial work, and that is a low-hanging fruit for a powerful AI to tackle. So automating or enhancing even a small portion of what the workforce does will result in savings of billions of dollars, and that money then can be used to invest into R&D, and that will ultimately increase the growth of the GDP. But the question becomes, who will be the first companies to use AI to increase their operational efficiency? And my bet is that those are large tech companies like Apple and Microsoft, because they're the most tech savvy, and they will be less hesitant than other companies to see how AI can save them billions of dollars. So that means that in addition to the semiconductor ETFs from before, tech ETFs like VGT and QQQ are additional ETFs that I'm looking to invest into. And the nice thing is that some of these tech ETFs also invest in semiconductor companies like Nvidia and AMD. So if you prefer a mixture, you can get that through some of these tech ETFs. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video will age well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.